What if the single greatest battle of your life is happening right now, quietly, invisibly, between your ears? Has this ever happened to you? You wake up determined to focus, yet by noon, your energy is hijacked by distractions, doubts, and the loud opinions of others. You want self-mastery, but comfort keeps whispering shortcuts. Today, we're diving into a simple but life-altering truth. Master your mind, or others will. True freedom begins inside, and the moment you learn to direct your thoughts rather than letting fear, convenience, or social pressure do it, you stop burning your future for short-term relief. But before we begin, please hit the like button and let me know where in the world you're watching from today. It's always fascinating seeing who's joining us from around the world. Stay with me until the end, because what you're about to discover might surprise you. Think about the last time you felt pulled in 10 directions. Was it your plan steering the day, or the loudest voice in the room? Mental discipline isn't about becoming a cold machine. It's about reclaiming authorship of your attention. Self-mastery is a practice, choosing where your focus goes, choosing which stories you repeat, choosing which impulses you entertain. When you direct your thoughts with intention, you give your goals oxygen and starve your doubts. And here's the twist. Even the strongest mindset can be quietly reprogrammed by the company you keep. Your surroundings shape you. You and I become the average of the people we keep close, their habits, their standards, their language about what's possible. If your circle normalizes excuses, your brain learns to rationalize inertia. If your circle models discipline, your brain learns to expect follow-through. So ask yourself, gently, honestly, who is training your attention? Do you spend most of your time with people who raise your standards, speak truth, and live the discipline you want? Or with people who drain your momentum, reward comfort, and confuse cynicism with wisdom? I'm not talking about judging others. I'm talking about protecting your trajectory. The human mind is astonishingly adaptive. It calibrates to the room. If you sit in rooms where excellence is normal, you'll stretch. If you sit in rooms where complaining is currency, you'll shrink. Has this ever happened to you, where one conversation with the right person lifted your entire week? That's no accident. Your environment is not neutral. Here's the empowering part. You don't have to overhaul your life overnight. You can begin with micro choices that compound 5 focused minutes before your phone. A single no to an old habit, a calendar block that protects deep work. Mental discipline grows through repetitions, just like a muscle. Every time you catch a fear thought and redirect it toward purposeful action, you strengthen self-trust. And every time you choose a room, a mentor, or a friend who challenges you to be bigger than your excuses, you rewrite what your nervous system believes is normal. What you're about to discover might surprise you. Most people don't fail from lack of potential. They stall because their attention is rented out to noise, and their circle keeps renewing the lease. So imagine this. You wake up tomorrow with a quiet mind and a clear compass. You enter a day curated by intention, not accident. You surround yourself with people who don't flatter you, they fortify you. They don't just cheer your dreams, they challenge your habits. And you start noticing how quickly your inner narrative shifts from I can't to I'm learning, from later to now. Stay with me until the end, because we're about to map the first 2 levers that change everything, the way you train your thoughts and the way you choose your circle. In the next part, we'll break down a practical audit to identify which voices to turn up and which to turn down, and a simple daily ritual that makes self-mastery your new default. If you're enjoying this kind of content and want to keep unlocking more insights like these, make sure to subscribe. That way, every new video reaches you the moment it's released, and you won't miss the ideas that could shift your perspective in powerful ways. What if the very idea you hold about your own worth has been built on a shaky foundation, one crafted not by you, but by the blindness of others? Too often we hand over the keys to our self-image, letting opinions and judgments decide the shape of our value. Yet the hidden truth is that your worth is never diminished by someone else's inability to see it. Identity becomes powerful when anchored not in applause, titles, or fleeting recognition, but in the quiet, steady process of living with purpose. When you redefine value on your own terms, the noise of outside approval fades, and suddenly the pressure to prove yourself dissolves. It is a revelation that feels like stepping behind the scenes of your own story, realizing you have been the author all along, not the character written by another hand. Still, even once you know your worth, the journey demands courage. Fear will appear, uninvited, disguised as a warning to stop. But what if fear isn't a wall, but a compass? Think of the times you've hesitated before making a decision that could transform everything. That hesitation wasn't just resistance, it was direction. Fear often points toward the very experiences that will stretch you into a new version of yourself. Transformation is not born from safety, it is forged in the exact spaces that make your pulse quicken. Fear, when aligned with your values, is not a signal to retreat, but a revelation, telling you that growth is waiting just beyond the edge of your comfort. And yet, what happens in that space, between fear and action, is often colored by emotion. Here lies another truth. Emotions are not enemies, they are raw energy. Anger, envy, grief, they carry intensity, but that intensity doesn't have to consume you. It can be redirected, transmuted into creative force. Imagine channeling frustration into building something new, turning envy into motivation to sharpen your craft, or reshaping grief into compassion that touches others. This is the art of emotional alchemy, where nothing is wasted and every surge of feeling becomes fuel. Behind the surface of chaos, there is always an opportunity to turn energy into impact. Now, I want to go even deeper into this topic, because once you see your value clearly, once you face fear as a guide instead of an obstacle, and once you learn to harness emotions instead of choking them, your mindset begins to shift in ways that are almost unrecognizable. The decisions you make stop being reactive and start becoming intentional. You notice the journey itself, transforming ordinary days carry extraordinary weight, and each challenge feels less like punishment and more like preparation. It's in these subtle shifts that you uncover revelations about yourself that were hidden all along. You start to realize that discipline is not chains, but freedom. That discomfort is not punishment, but proof that you're moving. That every emotion, every doubt, every fear is part of the raw material, shaping you into someone stronger, clearer, and more resilient than before. This is not about living a life free from storms. It's about discovering the calm eye within them. And as you walk this path, certain patterns become undeniable. The kind of patterns that, once seen, cannot be unseen. That's why I want you to reflect for a moment. Does this make sense to you? Write in the comments, "This makes sense to me," if you felt how fear can guide, how emotions can be transformed, and how value, once defined by you, changes everything. Your words might resonate with someone else walking the same hidden journey. There comes a moment in every journey when the pursuit of truth collides with the fear of being judged. To stand firm in what you believe, to say what you mean with respect, even when it isn't what others want to hear, is to step into a freedom few ever taste. The hidden truth is that integrity often comes with a price tag: popularity. People might frown when you stop playing by their unspoken rules, when you refuse to water down your words for comfort. Yet this is where transformation begins, because you are no longer trading authenticity for applause. The impact of such a decision reverberates far beyond the moment. It reshapes your mindset, forcing you to anchor your life in principles that cannot be bought or bargained away. And then life, with its unpredictable rhythm, presents the challenge of starting over. For many, the thought of beginning again feels like failure, like erasing everything that came before. But here lies a revelation that changes everything. Starting again doesn't mean starting from zero. It means starting with experience. It is iteration, not collapse. Each scar you carry is behind-the-scenes evidence of wisdom earned. Every closed chapter equips you with sharper discernment, stronger resilience, and a deeper sense of direction. Restarting is not weakness, it is responsibility reclaimed. It is the decision to take the pen back into your hands and write a stronger version of the story, even if the pages before are stained with pain. Yet the process of growth is rarely crowded. Elevation can be isolating because not everyone is willing to walk the uphill road with you. As your standards rise, some connections begin to fall away, not out of malice, but because they no longer align with who you're becoming. Growth taxes loneliness. There will be nights where the silence feels heavier than celebration, where you wonder if the price of progress is too steep. But behind the silence lies a hidden truth. Solitude sharpens your vision. It teaches you to recognize the rare souls whose loyalty is proven by consistent action, not by fleeting words. The hands that hold you through storms are infinitely more valuable than the ones that only clap in moments of success. This is the impact of transformation. Your circle may shrink, but your foundation becomes unshakable. Loneliness turns from a burden into a filter, revealing who truly belongs in your journey. You start to see that the freedom to act rightly, the courage to begin again, and the willingness to walk alone if necessary, are not losses, but gains. They are the raw material of a mindset that refuses to be diluted by fear or defined by convenience. Now, I want to go even deeper into this topic, because when you embrace the discomfort of being disliked, when you accept the courage of starting over, and when you learn to find strength in moments of solitude, you unlock a perspective that changes how you interpret every challenge that follows. Life stops being about constant approval and becomes a path of revelations, each step reminding you that authenticity is worth more than acceptance. Experience is worth more than certainty, and consistency is worth more than empty promises. If this resonates with you, I'd love to hear your voice in the comments. Put down, "I'm also on this path." Share it not just as words, but as a declaration that you, too, are walking through the hidden truths of transformation, and your testimony may inspire someone else who feels the same weight of loneliness or the same call to begin again. Momentum is rarely born out of grand gestures. It's built in the quiet consistency of small actions. Think about how often we wait for the perfect wave of motivation before we begin, as if inspiration were some hidden switch that lights the path forward. But the hidden truth is that motivation doesn't arrive first. It arrives later, summoned by the spark of movement. One phone call made instead of postponed, one page written instead of imagined, one rep completed instead of skipped. These little victories carry a weight that compounds, turning hesitation into habit and uncertainty into progress. Behind the scenes of any great transformation, you'll always find countless small, unglamorous actions quietly stacking into something extraordinary. And yet, while action builds momentum, it is forgiveness that frees the heart. Carrying resentment is like holding a burning coal, hoping it will scorch the other person while the only one in pain is you. Forgiveness is not about rewriting history or excusing harm. It's about reclaiming your focus for the present, releasing the grip of yesterday so it doesn't dictate the choices of today. When you let go, the knot in your chest loosens, and energy that was once trapped in bitterness becomes available for growth, creativity, and clarity. Forgiveness is not weakness. It is the ultimate act of power because it breaks the cycle of pain and replaces it with possibility. It is a revelation that the person most healed by forgiveness is always the forgiver. But here's another hidden truth. Living with honesty filters the room in ways nothing else can. When you speak truthfully, even when it trembles in your throat, you begin to see who is drawn to your authenticity and who retreats because they were only comfortable with masks. Honesty won't always make you popular, but it attracts the allies you actually need, the ones who stand by conviction, not convenience. It clarifies your path because when you own your behavior, even in moments when emotions surge, you remove the fog of pretense and step into alignment with yourself. This alignment is what builds trust, both with others and, more importantly, with yourself. Now, I want to go even deeper into this topic, because when small actions become the seeds of transformation, when forgiveness reclaims your focus, and when honesty clears the space around you, a new kind of freedom emerges. You stop waiting for life to align and start aligning yourself with life. You stop clinging to old hurts that drain your energy and instead direct. that same energy into building something meaningful. You stop performing for approval and start standing on truth, discovering that integrity is the foundation that holds everything else together. It is in these moments that you realize progress isn't just about forward motion, it's about lighter steps. Steps unburdened by the weight of resentment, by the drag of dishonesty, by the paralysis of waiting for perfect motivation. Each of these shifts brings you closer to a version of yourself that is not only more resilient, but also more magnetic. People can sense when you live in alignment with action, forgiveness, and truth. They may not always like it, but they respect it. And respect, unlike applause, doesn't fade when the noise quiets, it endures, anchoring you in relationships and environments that truly matter. If this resonates with you, I'd love to hear it in the comments. Right, this makes sense to me. Because sometimes just putting it into words creates a commitment to yourself. And your reflection might be the encouragement someone else needs to hear today. The environment you choose shapes your destiny more than raw talent ever will. Place matters, because even the strongest seed cannot bloom in soil that suffocates it. You might have all the potential in the world, but if you're surrounded by voices that belittle effort, by systems that reward shortcuts, or by circles that normalize mediocrity, your excellence quietly withers. It's a hidden truth that many overlook. Greatness isn't just about inner drive. It's also about where that drive is allowed to breathe. Think about it. Athletes thrive in teams that demand consistency. Artists expand when immersed in spaces that celebrate expression. And leaders sharpen their instincts when placed in arenas where clarity and courage are tested daily. The environment either stretches you into transformation or slowly convinces you to shrink back into comfort. And here's the fascinating part. Extraordinary results rarely come from grand gestures. They're born behind the scenes, in the quiet repetition of the ordinary. The small routines you hardly notice, writing a single page, practicing a single skill, showing up on time, keeping your word when repeated unreasonably long, become the foundation for breakthroughs. There is a hidden revelation here. Mastery isn't magic, it's momentum. The compound impact of tiny, consistent actions is what builds a journey worth remembering. It's the steady pulse of effort, tracked and refined, that turns ordinary into legendary. In truth, those we admire for brilliance are often just the ones who stayed faithful to the basics long after others gave up. But no amount of consistency can shield you from mistakes. In fact, mistakes are proof you're moving. The critical difference lies in how you respond to them. When you own your errors, you seize back control. You shift from being a victim of circumstance to an architect of growth. Admitting where you fell short isn't weakness. It's strength disguised as humility. Learning quickly, adjusting swiftly, and correcting decisively keep you in motion rather than stuck in regret. Every time you take responsibility, you tighten the grip on your own power. Because blame is a transaction that always benefits someone else. When you hand over fault, you also hand over authority. Responsibility, on the other hand, brings it right back into your hands. Now, I want to go even deeper into this topic, because once you understand how profoundly place influences your growth, once you embrace the compounding force of ordinary repetition, and once you learn to carry responsibility like a tool rather than a burden, the entire journey begins to look different. You start seeing patterns where before you saw only chaos. You notice how the smallest habits shape the largest outcomes, how the environment quietly sculpts your decisions, and how responsibility, once accepted, becomes a source of power rather than guilt. These are not just abstract ideas. They are the invisible threads weaving the fabric of your transformation. So reflect for a moment. Have you felt this in your own life? Maybe you've noticed how one environment drained your energy while another lit you up, or how a small habit repeated for months created impact you never imagined. Write in the comments, "I see the pattern." Share it as a way of marking the revelations you've noticed in your own journey, because your insight could be the spark that helps someone else recognize the hidden truth shaping theirs. Purpose is one of those words that gets wrapped in mystery, as if it were some hidden treasure buried deep inside of us, waiting to be uncovered with enough searching. But the hidden truth is different. Purpose is not discovered, it is created. It is not a single revelation that suddenly defines your entire existence. It is the quiet work of giving meaning to where you already stand. Through service, through craft, through the standards you set for yourself day after day, you transform ordinary actions into extraordinary significance. When you stop hunting for the one thing and start building purpose out of what is in front of you, life ceases to be a chase and becomes a creation. The mindset shift here is powerful. It takes you out of waiting mode and places you in author mode, where you no longer depend on destiny to hand you meaning, because you are actively shaping it. And shaping a life of meaning inevitably involves pressure, not the hollow pressure of keeping up appearances or the constant fatigue of tasks that drain your soul, but the useful kind, the stress that stretches you into new dimensions. Seek meaningful stress, the kind that comes from pursuing goals that align with your values, the kind that leaves you tired but fulfilled, not depleted. This type of pressure forges resilience, sharpening your character the way fire tempers steel. It reminds you that the impact of your journey isn't measured by how comfortable you stayed, but by how willingly you embraced the right challenges. Behind the scenes of every strong individual is a history of chosen struggles, battles that mattered enough to fight, and through them, the growth that could not have come any other way. Still, while you walk this path, the voices around you will attempt to guide, distract, or overwhelm. That is why choosing whom to listen to is one of the most important decisions you will ever make. Not every loud voice deserves your attention, and not every confident opinion carries wisdom. Ask the wise, not the loud. True guidance is measured not by volume but by results, not by charisma but by character. The counsel you allow into your life works like a medicine. The right advice heals, clarifies, and strengthens, while the wrong one can poison, confuse, or delay your progress. To curate mentors as carefully as medicines is to take responsibility for the quality of your transformation, because advice is not neutral. It shapes decisions, and decisions shape destiny. Now, I want to go even deeper into this topic, because when you realize that purpose is something you create, when you lean into meaningful stress as a forge rather than a burden, and when you learn to filter guidance with discernment, your entire journey takes on a new dimension. You no longer feel tossed around by chance or by noise. You begin to see the architecture of your own life forming in front of you. Purpose stops being a distant dream and becomes a daily practice. Stress stops being the enemy and becomes a teacher. Advice stops being background noise and turns into a carefully chosen map for the road ahead. This is where the hidden truths of growth reveal themselves, not as abstract ideas, but as tangible shifts in the way you live each moment. And I'd like you to reflect on this with me. Have you ever felt the difference between empty stress and meaningful stress? Write in the comments, "I know the difference." Your insight may help someone else recognize the pressure they've been carrying, and whether it's shaping them or simply exhausting them. One of the most draining experiences in life is pouring your energy into someone or something that never pours back. When you make someone your priority, while they reduce you to an option, you slowly teach yourself to accept less than you deserve. Reciprocity is not about keeping score. It's about balance, respect, and reliability. True connection flows both ways, and when it doesn't, it corrodes your confidence and distorts your vision. Recognizing this hidden truth isn't about bitterness, it's about boundaries. The impact of your decisions becomes clearer once you learn to invest only where there's mutual growth, where your time, effort, and heart aren't wasted but mirrored back in ways that strengthen you. Behind the scenes of every healthy relationship, whether personal or professional, there is reciprocity at its core, an unspoken agreement that both sides matter. And yet, even when we set these boundaries, pain still finds its way into the journey. But pain, as harsh as it feels, holds an unusual gift. It clarifies vision. A broken heart, whether from betrayal, disappointment, or loss, strips away illusions and reveals what truly matters. It teaches you to distinguish between surface-level desires and deep, sustaining truths. The hidden revelation is that wounds don't have to dictate your future. Lessons can. If you let pain lead every choice, you carry yesterday into tomorrow. But if you let the lesson lead, every tear becomes a lens, sharpening how you see the world and how you see yourself. The decisions you make from that place are stronger, wiser, and more aligned with the person you're becoming. Pain does not have to define you, it can refine you. And when refinement meets gratitude, transformation begins. Gratitude multiplies resources in ways that pure ambition never can. It shifts your perspective from what is missing to what is present, from scarcity to sufficiency. When you appreciate what you already have and deploy it with intention, you unlock hidden value that resentment blinds you to. Energy spent resenting is energy stolen from building, but gratitude reclaims that energy and directs it toward creation. It's not about ignoring difficulties, but about seeing clearly the tools, relationships, and opportunities you already hold. Gratitude is the mindset that turns little into enough and enough into abundance. And the impact is powerful. It not only transforms how you see your own life, but how others feel in your presence. People are naturally drawn to those who radiate appreciation because gratitude makes you magnetic. Now, I want to go even deeper into this topic, because when you set boundaries rooted in reciprocity, when you allow pain to sharpen instead of poison, and when you live with gratitude that multiplies instead of resentment that diminishes, your entire journey changes. Course, the behind-the-scenes truth is that this is where resilience and clarity meet. This is where mindset shifts from survival to expansion. This is where you stop exhausting yourself with what isn't working and start energizing yourself with what already is. So let me ask you, have you felt this shift before? Have you noticed how a painful moment gave you clarity, or how gratitude turned what seemed small into something powerful? Write in the comments, I see the hidden truth. By doing so, you mark the moment you recognize these revelations in your own journey, and your words might help someone else connect the dots in theirs. Time has always been the most democratic of resources. Everyone receives the same 24 hours, yet the outcomes could not be more different. The hidden truth is that people don't really lack time. They lack clarity about what matters. When you look closely, calendars are mirrors of values. Where you place your hours reveals what you prioritize, what you avoid, and what you pretend doesn't exist. To say, I don't have time, is often another way of saying, I chose something else. That's why making time, rather than waiting for it, becomes an act of self-respect. Boundaries are not restrictions. They are gifts to your future self, protecting energy, preserving focus, and aligning each day with the direction you claim to value. Someday is where dreams go to die, and each postponed choice is a quiet decision to let your life be steered by accident instead of intention. And intention is defined not only by what you pursue, but also by what you refuse. You are shaped just as much by your no as by your yes. Every sacrifice, every standard you set becomes part of your identity. Saying no to distractions, no to hollow flattery, no to opportunities that look appealing on the surface, but pull you away from your core values. This is how integrity is protected. Sometimes the most flattering offers are the most dangerous, because they lure you into abandoning what actually matters for the sake of being seen. The journey of transformation is not built by collecting every invitation. It is sculpted by refusing the ones that would dim your light. Behind the scenes of every strong character lies a series of deliberate refusals, a discipline of subtraction that allowed the essential to stand out. But none of this time management, boundaries, standards holds meaning unless you're willing to face the truth without running from it. Growth is not limited by what you know, but by what you can bear to acknowledge about yourself without fleeing into excuses. Facing the truth is uncomfortable because it demands responsibility, but that discomfort is the birthplace of transformation. When you stop softening the mirror and see things as they are, clarity arrives. Excuses blur reality, but honesty sharpens it. The impact of this is profound. The moment you stop negotiating with your flaws and start addressing them, you reclaim the power to change them. The truth might sting, but the sting is a signal that something real is being touched. And when you hold steady instead of escaping, the sting transforms into strength. Now, I want to go even deeper into this topic, because once you begin to create time instead of waiting for it, once you understand the identity-shaping power of refusal, and once you learn to stand in front of your own truth without retreat, you discover a form of resilience that cannot be taken from you. You are no longer dependent on chance or the validation of others. You begin to build a life that reflects deliberate choices. The journey becomes less about chasing fleeting approval and more about cultivating a foundation of clarity, courage, and commitment. These are not quick revelations. They are the slow-burning truths that, once internalized, alter the course of everything that follows. I'd like you to pause and reflect. Have you ever noticed how one boundary, one refusal, or one moment of honesty with yourself completely shifted your perspective? Write in the comments, "I felt the shift." Your words might encourage someone else to recognize the turning points in their own journey, the moments where hidden truths became catalysts for transformation. Not every invitation deserves your presence, and not every argument deserves your energy. One of the most liberating choices you can make is to step away from battles that do nothing but drain your clarity. Silence is not weakness. Strategy. When you choose your silences wisely, you protect the weight of your story from being thrown around in casual arenas where it won't be valued. Not everyone deserves front row access to your truth, and the hidden strength lies in knowing when to speak and when to simply walk away. Some victories are found not in what you say, but in what you refuse to dignify with a response. Behind the scenes of resilience is often a long history of restraint, where wisdom spoke louder than impulse. And, while silence guards your energy, action guards your future. The illusion of waiting for the perfect timing is one of the greatest traps in the human journey. 5 years can vanish quietly while you polish plans, dream about possibilities, and wait for certainty to arrive. But certainty is rarely a starting condition. It's a byproduct of movement. Begin now, even if you stumble, because the act of moving creates the path you keep waiting to see. Regret often comes not from failure, but from the haunting realization that nothing was even attempted. The hidden truth here is that time doesn't pause for your hesitation. Transformation only begins when you decide to trade intention for action, ideas for steps, and fear for forward motion. Perfection is not the entry point, it is the result of iterations, shaped by the courage to begin before you feel ready. And yet, even when we act boldly, we must remember that life unfolds in rhythms we do not fully control. Trust patience, trust process. Much of what you hope for will not arrive on your timeline, but on its own. The seeds you plant do not bloom by force, but by nurture and surrender. Guide, don't grip. You can give your best effort, offer support when it's asked for, and shape conditions where growth can occur, but at some point, you must release your hold and let life breathe. Impatience suffocates what patience would have ripened. The process is often uncomfortable because it requires trust without immediate reward. But that's where transformation quietly happens, in the unseen space between sowing and reaping. Now, I want to go even deeper into this topic, because when you master the discipline of silence, when you break free from the paralysis of waiting, and when you lean into patience with trust, you unlock a mindset that transforms how you experience both struggle and success. You realize that not every reaction deserves your voice, not every delay means denial, and not every beginning has to be perfect to matter. These revelations are not traumatic turning points, but subtle shifts that build strength behind the scenes, teaching you that the impact of your journey is measured not by how loudly you fight or how quickly you arrive, but by how deliberately you choose where to invest your presence and how faithfully you allow the process to unfold. I want you to reflect on this with honesty. Have you ever looked back and realized that silence, action, or patience completely changed the outcome of both? A situation in your life? Write in the comments, "I've seen the impact." Your reflection may resonate with someone else who needs the reminder that growth often hides in restraint, in beginnings, and in trust. Every connection we form, every relationship we maintain, is ultimately a mirror of the one relationship that sets the tone for them all the one we have with ourselves. How you speak to yourself in private moments is how you train others to speak to you. The standards you accept within quietly echo outward, teaching the world what's permissible and what's not. If you constantly undermine your own worth, others will follow that lead. But when you raise your standards internally by practicing self-respect, honoring your own boundaries, and treating your time and energy as sacred, you automatically elevate the quality of your relationships. The hidden truth is that people don't treat you as you are. They treat you as you allow. By transforming your self-relationship, you transform. A gravity you carry, and that gravity reshapes the orbit of those around you. But growth often requires an even more radical step, letting go of the self you once were. There comes a time when the identity that once kept you safe becomes the very thing holding you small. Maybe it was a role you learned to play, a mask that helped you survive, or a version of yourself that fit in with a certain chapter of your journey. The danger is in confusing temporary survival strategies with permanent definitions of who you are. Destroying the old self doesn't mean rejecting your past. It means honoring it enough to outgrow it. If you cling too tightly to outdated identities, they eventually destroy you by keeping you trapped in cycles no longer aligned with your potential. Loyalty to growth must always outweigh loyalty to ego. The ego clings to familiarity, but transformation demands courage to step into the unknown, even if it feels like a death of who you've been. Behind the scenes of every powerful reinvention lies this invisible funeral, the burial of an outdated self so that a truer self can emerge. And as you evolve, the measure of progress shifts from speed to direction. In a world obsessed with acceleration, the revelation is that moving fast in circles leads nowhere, while slow but deliberate steps down the right path take you farther than you ever imagined. Direction beats speed every time because it ensures that effort is compounding towards something meaningful instead of scattering into exhaustion. This principle doesn't just apply to personal growth. It extends into how you build your life, including your financial stability. Diversifying, creating second or even third income streams. And doing so prudently is less about chasing quick wins and more about ensuring that your foundation remains steady no matter how unpredictable the journey becomes. True security isn't found in speed. It's found in alignment with the right direction. Now, I want to go even deeper into this topic because once you realize that relationships mirror the way you treat yourself, once you embrace the courage of outgrowing old identities, and once you understand that direction matters infinitely more than speed, the whole landscape of your life begins to change. The mindset shifts from desperation to intention, from chasing validation to cultivating alignment, from sprinting blindly to walking purposefully. These revelations don't just tweak your journey, they redirect it entirely, anchoring you in choices that carry real impact instead of fleeting satisfaction. Take a moment to reflect. Have you ever felt the weight of an old version of yourself holding you back? Or noticed how treating yourself better transformed the way others treated you? Write in the comments, "I feel the transformation." Your words may echo the very realization someone else needs to awaken to their own hidden truth. Worry is one of the most deceptive thieves of our time and energy. It feels like motion. You replay conversations in your head. You imagine scenarios. You turn possibilities over and over like a stone in your hands. But when you step back, you see the hidden truth. Worry is motion without distance. You can pace all night. You can run circles in your mind, and yet you remain in the same place when dawn arrives. Transformation begins when you redirect that mental energy into rehearsal or action. Instead of imagining failure, you imagine strategy. Instead of looping what could go wrong, you plan how you'll respond. And instead of waiting for fear to pass, you take the step anyway. That's when you realize most obstacles are not detours. They are the actual path. Walking through them is the only way forward. Behind the scenes of every person who appears confident, there are countless moments where they traded worry for motion, not because the fear was gone, but because they refused to let rumination rule their decisions. And just as thoughts can imprison or liberate, so too can words. Words build worlds. Every promise you keep or break, every story you tell about yourself or others, becomes architecture for trust or erosion. To guard your speech is to guard your foundation. What you say creates reality in ways you may not see immediately, but feel deeply over time. When you commit to something and follow through, even in small things, you cultivate reliability that expands into every area of life. But the reverse is also true. Trust can take years to build and seconds to shatter with a careless phrase or broken word. This hidden truth isn't about being perfect with your language, but about becoming intentional. Words can create safety, inspire courage, or restore hope, and they can just as easily corrode, divide, or destroy. When you realize language isn't casual, it's creative, you begin to wield it with respect. Boundaries, too, act as language, except they speak through action rather than words. Protecting your focus means recognizing that not everyone deserves full access to your inner world. Vulnerability is sacred currency. It must be shared with discernment, not handed out indiscriminately. There are people who will hold your confessions as treasure, and there are those who will weaponize them against you. The hidden revelation here is that solitude isn't loneliness, it's training. Time alone resets your compass, strengthens your judgment, and clears away the noise of competing opinions. It is in solitude that you begin to hear the subtler truths that constant company drowns out. Protecting boundaries isn't about building walls. It's about creating gates, deciding intentionally who enters and under what terms. Your focus, like your energy, is finite, and learning to defend it is one of the most transformative decisions you'll ever make. Now, I want to go even deeper into this topic, because once you recognize worry for the endless treadmill it is, once you embrace the creative weight of your words, and once you begin to guard your boundaries with discernment, you'll notice a shift in how you carry yourself through the world. The impact is subtle at first. You stop scattering energy. You stop over-explaining. You stop apologizing for protecting your space. But soon the transformation becomes visible in everything you touch. The journey becomes less about surviving the noise and more about cultivating clarity in the midst of it. These are the behind-the-scenes revelations that change not just how you move, but who you become in the process. Think about your own life. Have you ever caught yourself worrying endlessly, only to realize that one small action dissolved the entire fear? Write in the comments, action over worry. Your words may remind someone else that their breakthrough begins the moment they stop circling the problem and start walking the path. Shortcuts often look tempting because they promise relief without the rigor, reward without the weight of responsibility. Yet every time you attempt to skip the struggle, you also skip the strength it was designed to forge in you. There are no worthy shortcuts, because character is born in the very challenges we wish we could avoid. Think of the moments in your journey when you had no choice but to push through. The transformation you experienced didn't come from the ease. It came from the resistance. The hidden truth is that the problems you tried to outrun will only circle back until you face them directly. And once you define those problems with honesty, clarity itself points you toward solutions. The discipline of confronting difficulty instead of dodging it, it is what creates resilience that cannot be manufactured any other way. Behind the scenes of every breakthrough lies a stretch of road no one wanted to walk, but had to, and that is what made the destination real. This is why the wisest thing you can do is simply take the next right step. Not the perfect step, not the glamorous step, the right one. Life is not lived in sweeping leaps, but in the compounding of small, courageous decisions. The longer you delay facing what you fear, the more it compounds, growing interest like a debt you never meant to take on. But when you lean into it early, you find that most fears dissolve once confronted. The journey isn't about removing fear altogether. It's about disarming it before it metastasizes into paralysis. Every decision, no matter how small, carries impact, shaping not only where you go, but who you become. Progress is rarely about giant victories. It's about building a chain of choices that slowly but relentlessly anchor you to the life you said you wanted. And yet, the greatest enemy of this chain is comfort. Comfort whispers that you can rest a little longer, that you can avoid the hard conversation, that you can postpone the risk. But comfort is not neutral. It quietly works against you. The hidden truth is that comfort erodes sovereignty. When you stop stretching, you stop growing. And when you stop growing, you become easier to manipulate, easier to control, easier to distract. Real freedom demands clarity, and clarity requires quiet, space, and the willingness to detach from the constant pull of distraction. The healthier you are mentally, physically, emotionally, the harder it becomes for anyone or anything to control your path. Progress is not born from comfort, but from challenge. From choosing the difficult decision over the easy delay, from stepping into transformation rather than clinging to stagnation. Now, I want to go even deeper into this topic, because when you stop chasing shortcuts and begin to honor the process, when you learn to break life down into the next right step, and when you recognize comfort as the subtle enemy it is, everything about your mindset shifts. You stop asking for an easier road and start asking for stronger shoulders. You stop waiting for the perfect plan and begin walking with imperfect courage. You stop surrendering your power to comfort and start reclaiming sovereignty through discipline. These revelations may not sound glamorous, but they are the behind-the-scenes truths that decide whether your journey stalls or transforms into something extraordinary. Think back to your own path. Have you ever noticed that the hardest chapter of your life gave you the exact strength you now rely on? Write in the comments, "Struggle builds me." Your reflection might remind someone else that the very weight they're carrying today could become the foundation of their future strength. Change never knocks. It sweeps in, rearranging the furniture of your life without asking. The mindset that thrives isn't rigid. It's fluid enough to adapt, focused enough to concentrate power on one aim, and wise enough to build alliances based on mutual interest rather than wishful goodwill. That's the hidden truth behind momentum. You don't outmuscle chaos. You out-organize it. When you align with people whose incentives rhyme with yours, the journey stops feeling like push-pull drama and starts moving like a well-tuned engine. Behind the scenes of every sustainable transformation, there are agreements where everyone wins by pulling in the same direction. Not because of slogans, but because the structure of the relationship makes cooperation profitable. Leading with order amid chaos doesn't mean controlling everything. It means refusing to let noise set your tempo. Hold your values like beacons and let them pace your decisions. Spectacle has its place used sparingly. It signals confidence and rallies energy, but it should never be a mask for emptiness. If the show is louder than the substance, the impact is short-lived. Real order looks quiet up close, clear priorities, patient timing, a cadence of actions that repeat until results compound. This isn't about theatrics. It's about building a rhythm strong enough to carry you when inspiration dips and distractions flare. Strategy, at its heart, is time travel. You stand in the present and think several moves ahead, not to script fate, but to prepare responses that protect your aim. Planning to the end gives shape to your choices now. It prevents you from celebrating halfway up the mountain and mistaking a plateau for the peak. And yes, sometimes you must protect your intentions with discretion. Broadcasting every step invites interference. Keeping your counsel allows results to speak first. There's a difference between secrecy and stewardship. The first hides. The second shields the fragile phase when an idea is too tender to withstand careless hands. Just as important is the courage to remove problems completely so they don't resurrect stronger. Partial fixes are invitations. They tell the obstacle it still has a seat at your table. Whether it's a leaky boundary, a misaligned partnership, or a recurring habit that wastes your mornings, decisive resolution is a kindness to your future self. In leadership and in life, pruning is not cruelty, it's design. You clear what siphons energy so the essential can grow with fewer fractures and fewer compromises. Now, I want to go even deeper into this topic, because the real revelations appear when adaptability meets concentration. To be fluid without focus is drift. To be focused without fluidity is brittleness. Marry the two, and your decisions gain a different weight. You can pivot without losing direction, accelerate without wobbling, pause without surrendering ground. This is how you make space for patient timing while staying in motion, how you let process work its quiet magic without falling asleep at the wheel. The result is a kind of sovereignty that feels less like control and more like coherence. Your choices, your alliances, your calendar, your words, each reinforcing the others, each pointing toward the same horizon. If this resonates, seal the insight with a simple line in the comments: focused, fluid, and forward. Write it to anchor the mindset in your own memory, to signal the decision you're making today, and to offer a small spark to someone who might need to see their path mirrored back with clarity. Overthinking has a way of disguising itself as preparation. You tell yourself you're analyzing, researching, waiting for clarity, but what's really happening behind the scenes is paralysis. The hidden truth is that what feels complicated is often just unfamiliar. Transformation doesn't come from imagining every possible outcome. It comes from experimenting, testing, and adjusting along the way. Precision isn't born in stillness. It's refined through motion. Every great journey you admire was not the result of flawless planning, but of someone daring to start, to fail small, to recalibrate, and to keep moving. The impact of this mindset shift is powerful. You stop chasing certainty and start embracing progress. Ambition doesn't need you to sprint blindly. It needs you to move deliberately, slower if necessary, but always forward, with each adjustment bringing you closer to mastery. And yet, no matter how carefully you move, everything rests on one irreplaceable resource: time. Time is the rarest currency you will ever hold. Unlike money, once it's spent, it never comes back. The hidden revelation is that you are already wealthy in minutes, but poor in attention if you spend those minutes in places where growth, love, and integrity cannot compound. Every decision about where your hours go is a design choice. You're not just filling calendars. You're shaping your life. Happiness cannot be postponed for some distant horizon. It must be designed into the present moment, woven into the way you structure your days. When you pour time into the right places, even small investments ripple outward, producing depth, resilience, and fulfillment that no shortcut can buy. This is why perseverance matters so deeply. Time itself doesn't guarantee growth. It's what you do with it consistently that shapes the trajectory. The person who perseveres through the mundane, who keeps showing up when it feels repetitive or invisible, is building something that only becomes visible years later. The journey may not look glamorous behind the scenes, but it is in those quiet hours that transformation is sealed. And when you measure your days not by distractions survived, but by meaningful decisions taken, you reclaim time as a tool rather than a thief. Now, I want to go even deeper into this topic, because when you stop waiting for perfect clarity and begin experimenting, when you recognize time as the rarest currency and spend it where love and integrity multiply, your entire mindset shifts. Life stops feeling like a blur of missed chances and starts feeling like a deliberate composition where every note matters. This is the hidden truth most people overlook. The future is not waiting to be discovered. It is waiting to be designed by how you spend the next hour, the next choice, the next act of courage. Take a moment to reflect. Have you noticed how one experiment, one tiny use of your time differently, completely altered your direction? Write in the comments, "Time shapes me." By doing so, you affirm not only your awareness of time's weight, but also your decision to treat it as the currency of growth, rather than letting it slip silently through your fingers. If you've made it all the way here, you already know how much these reflections can shift the way we see ourselves and the choices we make every day. That's why I'd love for you to stay connected. Subscribe to the channel so you don't miss the next layers of insight we'll unfold together. And since you've walked with me to the very end, let's leave a little mark. Write in the comments, "I'm with you until the end." It's a simple way to let me know you were here, but also to remind yourself of the commitment you've made to your own growth. If at any point during this journey something resonated, if a phrase or idea sparked a hidden truth inside you, a natural way to seal It is with a like. It's a gesture that tells me this content has meaning for you, just as much as it does for me when I share it. And now, don't stop here. There's a video right here that complements this topic. Click and continue with me over there. We'll keep deepening this journey together.